There's a phase in every creator's journey where the noise starts to fade. Not the external noise of views and numbers, but the internal noise of confusion, doubt, and constant second guessing. And in its place, something sharper begins to emerge: awareness, the ability to see patterns where before there was only randomness, to recognize that what once felt unpredictable is actually structured, just hidden beneath layers of complexity. And this is the phase where most creators either level up or plateau permanently, because reaching this point doesn't guarantee growth. It only gives you the option to grow, and what you do next determines everything. Because now, for the first time, you begin to understand that YouTube is not reacting to your uploads individually. It's evaluating your channel as a system, a continuous stream of signals that together form a profile, a kind of identity that tells the algorithm what your content is about, who it's for, and how people respond to it. And this profile becomes the foundation of your reach, because once the system starts to recognize consistent patterns in your content, it becomes more confident in recommending it to the right audience, and that confidence is what unlocks distribution. But here's the challenge that comes with that realization. Building a clear, strong channel identity requires restraint, the discipline to say no to ideas that don't align, even if they seem interesting or trendy. Because every time you upload something outside your core focus, you dilute that identity, you introduce confusion into your content profile, and confusion in a system that relies on prediction is the fastest way to slow down growth. Not because the content is bad, but because it doesn't fit into a clear pattern the algorithm can understand and distribute effectively. Now imagine your channel as a signal in a massive network, and every video you upload either strengthens that signal or weakens it, depending on how consistent it is with your overall direction. And when your signal is strong, when your content consistently attracts and retains a specific type of viewer, the algorithm starts to treat your channel differently. It begins to test your videos more aggressively, to push them to similar audiences, to expand your reach beyond your existing viewers. And this is when growth starts to feel less like pushing uphill and more like being carried forward by momentum. And this is also where your relationship with your audience begins to change. Because as your content becomes more focused, your viewers become more defined, more engaged, more invested, and instead of random people clicking on your videos occasionally, you start to build a base. A group of viewers who return, who recognize your style, your voice, your perspective, and this familiarity creates trust. And trust leads to stronger engagement, higher retention, and ultimately, more consistent performance across your uploads. But here's where things get even more interesting, because once you reach this stage, the question of frequency evolves again. It's no longer just about how often you can upload or how much you can test. It becomes about sustainability, about creating a system that allows you to maintain quality over time without burning out. Because now every video matters more. Every upload contributes to a larger narrative, and maintaining that standard consistently requires not just effort, but structure. This is where systems and workflows come into play, something that many creators overlook in the early stages because they're focused on immediate output rather than long-term efficiency. But as your channel grows, the ability to plan, to batch content, to streamline your process becomes essential because it allows you to maintain a steady upload schedule without sacrificing the depth and quality that your audience has come to expect. And this balance between efficiency and creativity is what enables sustainable growth. At the same time, however, a new kind of pressure begins to emerge. Not from lack of results, but from the expectation to maintain them. Because once your channel reaches a certain level of consistency, both you and your audience begin to expect a certain standard, a certain level of performance. And this expectation can be both motivating and overwhelming because it pushes you to improve, but also makes every deviation feel more significant, more noticeable, and managing that pressure becomes part of the creative process. And then there's the element of evolution, because no matter how strong your current strategy is, it cannot remain static. Audiences change, trends shift, platforms evolve, and what works today might not work tomorrow. And this means that even as you build consistency, you must remain adaptable, willing to experiment, to refine, to adjust your approach based on new data and changing conditions. Because growth is not just about finding what works, it's about continuously redefining what works as the environment changes. Now bring all of this back to the original dilemma: how many videos should you upload daily? And at this level, the answer becomes deeply personal, because it depends not just on your capacity, but on your system, your workflow, your ability to maintain quality, and your understanding of your audience. And for some creators, daily uploads make sense, especially if their format supports it and their process is optimized. But for others, a lower frequency with higher impact is far more effective, and the key is not to follow a universal rule, but to build a strategy that aligns with your specific situation. And as you continue forward with this understanding, something profound begins to happen. You stop chasing growth as an outcome and start focusing on building a system that naturally produces it. A system based on clarity, consistency, quality, and adaptability. And when all these elements align, growth becomes a byproduct rather than a goal. Something that emerges from the way you create rather than something you constantly struggle to achieve. And in that moment, when you look back at where you started, refreshing your analytics, questioning your approach, wondering why nothing was working, you realize how far you've come, not just in terms of numbers, but in understanding, in perspective, in control. Because now you're no longer reacting to the platform, you're working with it, shaping your content in a way that aligns with how it functions. And that alignment is what transforms effort into results, turning what once felt like a guessing game into something far more deliberate, far more strategic, and ultimately, far more rewarding.